you said before that we don't really have the language right now. Sorry. We don't really have the language right now to figure out where we are at in whatever this process is of expanding one's horizon, and talk to each other, also figure out where we are and stuff like that. And it's not really clear where this is going. Like something like that I heard you say, and what comes up for me is so many people say we are on the brink of a paradigm shift. I mean, everyone is kind of feeling that. What I found interesting, like, and I don't want to be smart ass about it, but I think it's actually a meaningful thing, is to say I don't think that what we're seeing here is a paradigm shift. I think it is a shift out of the paradigm of paradigms. So when I say liminal mind, it's one of these things that's never fully defined, but in my sense, it's like the mind that serves story as vision. That's kind of liminal mind. It is also the mind that it is not grounding itself in any structure of or worldview, but rather it is grounded in groundlessness. That's a term of the ancient Greeks. They call it metis, which to me was just like, oh man, that's exactly what I'm trying to say when I say liminality, be grounded in groundlessness. So I think a paradigm is when you try to ground yourself in something that is not the ground, but you just pretend it is. So you build this thing and say, like, no, this is now the absolute truth, even though it's built out of relative truth claims. And then you kind of, because you seek a sense of safety, you see security. So you're like, no, this is the world. I can map it. I understand it. Everyone else is crazy, whatever, doesn't understand physics or whatever you want to say. So now you're in that thing. And at some point, the pressure of reality just is so high that this whole thing collapses. And then in a mode of almost panic, you quickly build a new one and call that the new paradigm. And then you just do the same thing over and over again. It's like a Sisyphus struggle, you know? It's just like, what the fuck are we doing? Indigenous people behave totally differently, because in order to build a paradigm, you need to kind of make stories your slave. You're like, you go here and you behave like this, and I better not see you change, right? Like you're my life raft here in this ocean that I'm afraid of. But liminal mind is like serving story as being, so it can't use it as a tool to ground yourself. You need to find a ground that is beyond story, right? You need to come from that awareness that is here before there is some worldview. And from that place, then you can truly serve story. And if we do that, we will go back to a very ancient way, I'm convinced, but also like enter this new era for us, relatively speaking, where we transcend the paradigm of paradigms, and enter like what Jordan Hall calls a trans-paradigmatic mind. So he had this bit, I'm not 100% sure, I never checked with him if I interpreted it correctly, but he had this Medium article where he's like, he calls the generation that I believe I'm part of, or like this new generation is coming up, like Generation Omega, the last generation. And I was like, oh man, that's dark, you know, like, okay, we are just gonna extinguish ourselves. And I never heard him clarify it, but I thought like maybe what he's saying is like, this is the generation of trans-paradigmatic mind. And maybe the notion of paradigm and generation is so deeply connected that he's like, if we don't do the paradigm thing anymore, then it's not even meaningful to call it generation in the same way that we refer to the concept right now.